Speaking of upsetting people, Sharks forward Dale Finucane has warned teams may be forced to re-evaluate their defensive strategies after he was banned for 2 matches over a head clash that left Panthers centre Stephen Crichton requiring plastic surgery for a split ear. Corey Waddell was suspended too, but we'll get to that one secondly. Bob Lidner and Dallas Johnson were the player representatives on the judiciary panel. They found Finucane guilty of a Grade 2 dangerous contact charge after determining the way in which he shot out of the defensive line to tackle Crichton last Saturday night was dangerous and carried an unacceptable risk of injury. Finucane claimed he was the first player suspended for a head clash and said the decision of the judiciary panel would set a precedent for future tackles. He said, I'm obviously disappointed with the outcome, and while I empathise with Stephen over the outcome and the laceration to his ear, it has set a precedent for our game moving forward. I was quite surprised with the outcome, given it was an accidental offence, and given that our game hasn't seen anything sanctioned before for an accidental head clash. 2 weeks for a head clash. Wasn't even penalised during the game. We're going into uncharted waters here now.
All right. Well, the first thing I'll throw up, if Stephen Crichton wasn't injured, if his ear wasn't split, it was just a heavy collision and both players got up, do you think we'd have heard of this again?
No.
Therefore, it's the split ear that's made the difference. So if he hits him 3 centimetres to the left or the right, hasn't got a split ear, do you think we're really hearing about this at all?
We've seen a huge number of head clashes this year.
Have we not seen instances like that the whole time? Can I take you back to the first 3 minutes of Origin this year?
Yes.
Right? People inserting their authority in defence and people coming out of the line because they can read the play of the opposition or trying to assert authority or dominance or to get dominant tackles and everything that the game demands of us and the things that we expect out of the game has been thrown into total turmoil through this ridiculous interpretation, this ridiculous decision. And I don't know who's behind it because you couldn't possibly get a number of people together in one room to agree on this. That this was somehow something that should be suspended or taken out of our game. You have totally changed the dynamic of our game if people can't come out of the line and hunt down opposition players that are carrying the ball one out and trying to assert authority for your team. That's what our game is.
Yeah.
It's an accidental one. It's one that's gone wrong. He might have done this hundreds of times. They say it wasn't his normal tackling style. Well, give me an example of that. He's knocked himself out. How many times has Dale Finucane knocked himself out in making tackles? Now, if Finucane knocked himself out and Crichton got up, would we have been hearing about this? Of course not. And to say this, that the decision to rush out of the line was careless and it was not standard technique to make first contact is absolute ridiculous. That's just made up. That is made up for the occasion. I'm sorry. That has just been fabricated for the occasion. Absolutely fabricated for the occasion. I cannot believe that you could accuse someone of that.
You're one of the most esteemed coaches the game's had, Gus. Did you coach your forwards to rush out of the line and put pressure on oppositions?
If they could. Every meter's important. Crichton's a dangerous player. It doesn't matter if it's a big forward, a halfback or whatever. If you can read the play and you can hunt him down, go and get him. That's what the game's all about.
What about the scoreboard? They were trailing by, was it 4 points or something?
You're trying to assert authority. That's what your forwards want to do.
Game in the last few minutes. It was trying to force a mistake.
Yeah, well, we just had an Origin series with 3 sensational games. Let's go back and count the number of times that people raced out of the line and tackled someone. Let's go to the videos of all the games during the year and look at the number of times people race out of the line to hit someone and tackle someone. And out of all of those, every now and then we get a head clash. Every now and then it's the bloke making the tackle that gets hurt. Because if you come out and do it on Tavita Pangai, you come out and do it on Taumalolo, you might get knocked out yourself. But that's the game. That's the game we accept to play. That's the players that play this game. That's the risk that they understand. This unnecessary risk. We play knowing the risk. We play knowing the physicality. We play know that accidents happen. I don't know where this leaves the game now. I don't know where this leaves the defenders now. To think that I could race up and make a tackle, and if I have a head clash and he gets hurt, I could be sitting on the sideline. I don't know how you interpret that. And I've been saying all along, that if you start making them make tackles around the legs and around the waist, you're going to get what you got in Origin that first couple of minutes, where everyone making a tackle got injured, weren't they? Everyone who got knocked out was making a tackle, not getting tackled. Right? We teach them to tackle upright. We teach them to tackle ball and all. Right? Every now and then it goes wrong. There's a split second. Crichton did enough movement and enough falling in that tackle to contribute to the collision point himself. What is Finucane supposed to do? Wait till he falls and finishes his run before he is allowed to tackle him?
Well, that's what they're saying.
Wait till he runs past him so he can tackle him around the legs?
Well, that's what they're saying.
They have no idea. They have no idea the ramifications of this judgment or the way it's been counselled in terms to justify the decision. Right? They don't know what that's going to do. And we have had tackling techniques. I get bored with this. We've had tackling techniques change over the decades because of rules and interpretations and speed of the play of the ball and other things that have come in when, back then it was actually safer than what we do now. It was less risk of injury, but, let's not go down that path. But what I'm saying is that this is not an unacceptable risk of the game. That is not
part of the game.
It is the game. It is the game. It is the game. All right? Had Crichton not split his ear and was bleeding and had to go off the field, they both play on and we get on with it.
I don't know whether this is a vexed question. Everyone associated...
Is this causing us trouble with that question?
I think... I mean, we had to address that one. I mean, I'm stagnant.
I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I think it's the most... It wasn't even a penalty on the night. So how can and we know referees and bunker are trigger happy on all this at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? They're pulling blokes off for HIAs that don't need to be coming off the field. It's don't start me on all that. But they're trigger happy. Referees and bunker are trigger happy. How many times did they look at it on the night?
Well, I can tell you, I called the game for radio with Dale Broman and Paul Gallen, and when it happened, the crowd went up because it was a Penrith thing. It was a high tackle.
Yep.
And then when the replay came up on the screen, everyone saw it was a head clash.
Yep.
And Gal, who was right in front of it, said it's a head clash, and if they're serious about this, it should be play the ball, play on. And that's exactly what happened. And everyone agreed.
After how many reviews? They had plenty of time to review it because Crichton was getting treated for his ear and eventually left the field when they saw the seriousness of the cut. And that's just a collision industry. I mean, Crichton was fine. He wasn't concussed. He wasn't knocked out. He was fine. It was just that they had to go and treat the ear. But with all the reviews of that, the bloke in the bunker and the referee, have they been sacked this week?
I don't know. Well,
will they be sacked this week?
Well, Ashley Klein's been given the flick.
Well, that's another story. But what I'm saying is...
Yeah, you're saying that's right. Well, what they've done
if
is
they
wrong.
Missed
they did the wrong thing.
If they missed a 3-week suspension that they were able to review a dozen times or over 3 or 4 minutes, whatever it took to get Crichton off the field, then what about those two? And we know they're trigger happy because they have to be.
Yeah.
That's the way the game's gone. So there was no penalty, there was no report, there was no send-off, there was nothing. The bunker reviewed it, the referee looked at it, the referee would have seen the screen, and even with the crowd howling, the home crowd howling, it was,
I think everyone accepted at Penrith that it was an accidental head clash and it should have been play on.
So suddenly the next morning it's a match review decision.
I saw 2 to 3 weeks and nearly fell over when I read
that's impossible. That's ridiculous. And now it's been supported. Well, they go in there and they interview them, interrogate them, and make accusations on what your intentions or what your intentions weren't, or that you were reckless or you were careless or whatever. I mean,
back to my
if that's dangerous, every tackle in the game is dangerous. That's the risk that we accept. You can do knees, you can do ankles, you can do groins, you can do shoulders, you can do necks. We've seen a myriad of injuries. You can get injured at any time in any tackle, whether it's a safe tackle, whatever. Injuries are part of the game. That's an acceptable risk that we take. All right? The physicality of the game, trying to assert your authority, is a part of our game. This is professional football. This is not Oztag on Wednesday nights. This is not trying to make the game safe so mum and dad can play, right? Or so 10-year-old Johnny can play. It's not about, this is the professional code. They get well paid, they get well trained, they get well looked after, all right? And this is what they are. These are the players they want to be. You look at all that carnage, right, in Origin, right? You look at all that carnage in Origin and 99% of the public would say, I'd hate to be out there in that. I wouldn't put myself in that. That's unnatural. And it is unnatural, isn't it? For people to throw themselves at each other like that and be prepared to knock themselves out. That's unnatural, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you know what? There's kids sitting at home watching that saying, I've got to be there. I want to be there. I want to be in that game. I want to go out and prove myself.
I didn't see one person complaining that it was too tough.
Tell me, there are kids sitting there saying, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to be there. Right? The 99 other 9%, you don't have to worry about it. You're not the one doing it. But we want to make the professional game safe that, say, a little 10-year-old Johnny can come out onto the field and still play with them. It's ridiculous. I find this to be one of the most ridiculous judiciary things I've ever seen in my life. You know, Stephen Crichton wouldn't be wanting this. He wouldn't have been expecting that to happen to Dale Finucane. He knows what football is. That's why he plays it. He understands it. To say that that is an unacceptable risk of the tackle that he performed is totally, you know the word.
Everyone agrees with the stance around looking after the duty of care of players in relation to...
So but
hang on a minute.
We don't want to offend someone.
No, let me just... The head injury stuff with the research and whatever, I think people can probably accept that is a step in the right direction. Have we gone too far? Or is that too provocative a question?
I'm not allowed to comment on that.
Right. I mean, I'm just thinking about a couple of incidents at the weekend where there were glancing blows of players who, literally got grazed on a cheek or a chin or something, and then got put on report and a penalty. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like again, there's accidental stuff and there's careless eye contact. Do you know what I mean? Like, are we trying to legislate for every single thing now? And is that taking
everything
the
is
game
accommodated
far too
under
far?
the rules? Be it reckless, careless, intentional, deliberate, whatever you want to. It's all there in the rule book. I don't see any of that in this tackle whatsoever. I don't see any of it in this tackle to say that that was an unnecessary risk he took. It's ridiculous. And I don't know where it goes from here. I don't know what this does to tackling techniques and to the game, or what sort of game they think this is. Go back and watch your Origins again. Those two boys played Origin, the boys on the committee.
Well, Dallas Johnson, he put his head in places where it's not meant to go his whole career. He couldn't mean that, could he? Dallas Johnson, he could not mean that.
I can't comment.
All right, 2 weeks for Dale Finucane. Corey Waddell got 5. They upheld the eye gouge charge, so a bit happening at judiciary.